The movie kicks off with Elliot and his daughter Ridley driving to the house of Elliot's boss, Odell. Odell, who's unfortunately in the last stage of cancer, wants to make Elliot the new vice president of the company. Elliot, understandably, is over the moon. But just as they're headed there, Elliot gets a call from Odell, who's furious because they're an hour late. Let's be real, Elliot's punctuality is so bad, even sloths are like, "Speed up, bro." Trying to calm the situation, Elliot apologizes, but then starts sneezing like a lawnmower with allergies. Turns out he has a dust allergy, his focus breaks, and bam! A car crashes into his. When he gets out to assess the damage, he realizes he just hit a baby unicorn. Yep, a majestic, magical creature. Because of course Elliot's bad luck had to escalate into a mythical felony. The poor unicorn is in deep pain, and Ridley, moved by the sight, touches its shimmering horn. The moment she does, it's like she's transported to another dimension, all magical and wondrous. She's soaking in the moment when suddenly her dad, Elliot, is screaming and charging at the unicorn with an axe. Yes, an axe. Calm down, Minecraft Steve. He begins slaughtering the baby unicorn in full psycho mode. Ridley tries to stop him, but nope, the man's gone full unicorn hunter. Then these two geniuses decide to take the unicorn's body with them, for evidence cleanup. Because nothing says vice president material like murder and cover-ups before a job interview. They finally arrive at Odell's house during their meeting. Odell tells Elliot that he's come to terms with his own death and believes Elliot is the only one who can take over the company. Elliot eagerly jumps in with business ideas like he's Shark Tank ready. But just before signing the papers, Odell pauses and says, "Not yet." He wants to spend more time with Elliot and Ridley, get to know them better. Odell clearly doesn't realize he's inviting a unicorn-killing maniac and a traumatized teen to his deathbed sleepover. Meanwhile, upstairs, Ridley is stunned. She washes her face and voila, all her acne vanishes. It's like her face went from pizza to porcelain in seconds. Turns out the unicorn's blood that splashed on her worked like magical skincare. Forget proactive, get yourself some unicorn plasma. Excited and freaked out, Ridley runs to her dad. "Dad, listen, something crazy just happened. We need to leave." But Elliot's like, "Nah, we're staying. Odell wants some family bonding time." Because yes, let's just chill with a dying boss while covered in unicorn DNA. As they're chatting, a loud, terrifying scream cuts through the air. Everyone rushes outside only to find the window of Elliot's car shattered and a baby unicorn emerging. Yep, zombie unicorn coming to theaters near you. The security guard panics and shoots at it, because when in doubt, pew pew. Everyone's staring, dumbfounded, and asking, "What even is this?" Ridley deadpans. "It's not rocket science, that's clearly a baby unicorn. Give her a science degree, she's cracked the code." Seeing no point in hiding it anymore, Elliot confesses to Odell. "Yeah, that unicorn? I hit it with my car." Casual, Ridley adds, "and my acne disappeared." Elliot then remembers he hasn't sneezed once since that unicorn blood hit him, and even his vision has miraculously improved. The dude took off his glasses and suddenly went from Mr. Magoo to 2020s. Unicorn blood, nature's multivitamin. That night, Elliot finds Ridley sitting alone, clearly worried. He asks her, "When you touched the unicorn's horn, did you see anything?" She explains that she felt a strange connection with it, like something deeper was going on. She also starts doubting Odell's family, saying they seem greedy, and that giving them the unicorn was a huge mistake. She wants to rescue the unicorn and leave. But Elliot shuts her down fast. "Forget it. I'm this close to the promotion." "Way to go, Elliot, selling out your daughter and a magical creature for a title. Your moral compass isn't just broken, it's spinning in circles, fuming." Ridley kicks him out of the room and turns to look at her family photos. Behind her mother's picture, she notices a painting of a unicorn in the background. This triggers her curiosity, and she dives deep into researching unicorn history. What she finds is shocking. Hunters, kings, and warriors had tried for centuries to kill unicorns, but none succeeded except for one kind-hearted girl. That girl was used to lure and finally kill the unicorn, which was then enslaved in a castle. Over time, the image of unicorns changed. After the French Revolution, people started depicting them as monsters in stories. Yeah, because when your revolution involves guillotines, you stop believing in glitter horses. After all that intense unicorn lore, Ridley falls asleep, only to have terrifying nightmares of dark, creepy forests. Anyway, when she woke up in the morning, Ridley and Elliot were taken in for medical testing. Why? Because unicorn blood was all over them, like they'd rolled around in a mythical petting zoo. The doctors and scientists were curious to find out what kind of changes the unicorn blood had triggered in their bodies. Odell, meanwhile, had gone full mad scientist and turned his house into a high-tech lab. The unicorn was also being experimented on there. Because clearly, privacy isn't a thing when you're magical, and Bleeding Sparkles, Dr. Song, the head scientist, and probably the only sane one, gave a presentation to everyone. She explained how the unicorn's blood and horn had extraordinary healing powers. Then Dr. Badia chimed in, babbling about the unicorn's horns releasing bioelectrical signals. Let's be honest, Badia sounded like he'd watched one too many sci-fi shows and was now quoting from mythical beasts and how to exploit them. To verify their findings, they needed to study the unicorn more. Odell and his son, who clearly had dollar signs in their eyes, happily gave permission. Once it was confirmed that the unicorn's horn powder could heal any serious disease, they decided to test it on Odell himself. After all, the man had last-stage cancer and basically nothing to lose. If the experiment had side effects, he was like, meh, I'm dying anyway. That's one way to skip the waiting list for medical trials. Just sign your will and go full unicorn. While all this was happening, the other doctors discovered that the unicorn's bioelectrical signals were getting stronger. Elsewhere, Elliot was sitting with Odell, who hadn't experienced any pain since the experiment. He was actually feeling good. So good, in fact, that he started thanking Elliot. Because of you, he said, I'm getting my life back. He even called Elliot his business partner, and Elliot, of course, was grinning like a raccoon who just found an unlocked trash can. Meanwhile, Odell's son noticed that Ridley was still deep into researching unicorns, because unlike the rest of them, she had a brain. A bit later, Odell showed up in front of everyone, and even Dr. Song was shocked. How was this man who was basically on death's door yesterday walking around like he just came back from a spa weekend? Odell's whole family and Elliot were celebrating, but Ridley, she was visibly uncomfortable, like the only person in the room who realized they were about to unleash magical hell. Odell instructed Dr. Song to prep the unicorn for a transport to their company headquarters for further testing. See, Odell's company was actually a pharmaceutical company, but then Dr. Song dropped the bomb. Unicorn cells couldn't be replicated. They were one of a kind. His wife, though, she wasn't fazed. She was like, so what? We'll still advertise it. Less supply means more demand and more profit. Ah, yes, the classic business motto, who cares about ethics when there's cash? Ridley tried to speak up, pulling out the historical text she'd been reading. But no one wanted to hear it. They were too busy designing packaging for their next big drug launch. In their excitement, they even drank the unicorn's blood like it was some fancy herbal detox shot. That was it. Ridley had enough. She stood up, full drama mode, and gave a speech. She reminded everyone that 1,000 years ago, unicorns were seen as monsters. Not because they were evil, but because bad things always happened to those who hurt or disrespected them. She wrapped up with, I think we should let the unicorn go. Everyone looked at her like she just said the earth was flat. They started mocking her and calling her crazy. Even Odell looked at Elliot like, bro, what kind of TED Talks is your daughter giving? Ridley realized the greed had fried everyone's brains like microwave leftovers. She told her dad she was done and warned him to walk away too. But Elliot? He refused because apparently promotion morals. Frustrated and furious, Ridley stormed out of the house. That's when she noticed strange lights in the sky. Meanwhile, a bizarre tunnel had been constructed to secretly transport the unicorn to the company headquarters. As Dr. Song and Dr. Bhatia were escorting the unicorn through the tunnel, their machines suddenly detected that the unicorn's bioelectrical signals had spiked way beyond the safe range. Before they could react, the entire facility's power went out. All electronics gone, dead. Like their common sense, Odell, clearly not concerned that this was a giant red flag, sent Elliot to investigate. Because when things go dark and magical creatures are involved, of course you send the guy whose only qualification is hitting unicorns with cars. Elliot entered the tunnel and saw it had been blasted open. Inside the horrifying sight, A large, sharp unicorn horn had stabbed through Dr. Song's body. From the shadows, a massive, growling unicorn emerged. Outside, guards tried to hold the line and open fire on the beast. Meanwhile, in a car nearby, another unicorn attacked Ridley. Elliot ran toward her, managing to get her out just in time. The unicorn that Elliot had just saved Ridley from was now charging straight at him. To protect her dad! Ridley shouted at him to run, and she, of course, stayed behind to distract the unicorn. Brave move or reckless? Honestly, she had more guts than Elliot had common sense. But just as the creature got close to her, Ridley noticed something odd. It didn't seem like it wanted to hurt her at all. In fact, when it came near, its glowing unicorn horn began to shine even brighter. Before Ridley could touch it, though, the guards did what guards always do in these situations. They panicked and opened fire because obviously the best way to understand a magical, glowing creature is to shoot at it. The unicorn bolted, injured. Blood stained the ground, a clear sign the guards had landed their shots. Inside the house, Odell's son was now losing his mind and yelling at Ridley. "Why didn't you tell me the baby unicorn's parents could come here and attack us?" Ridley snapped back. "I tried to tell you, but maybe if someone had actually listened to me for 5 seconds," which frankly was a fair roast because this guy was acting like a CEO of selective hearing. She went on to confess something strange. She felt this odd pull and emotional connection with the unicorns. She'd felt it when she touched the baby unicorn, and now she felt the same thing with its parents. Odell's wife chimed in. Maybe that's why the unicorn didn't attack her. Ridley took that moment to drop the truth bomb. It was time to let the baby unicorn go. It didn't belong here, but Odell. Odell had other plans. With the slipperiness of a used car salesman, he twisted her words and said, "We can't let this innocent creature die in vain. We'll catch its injured parents too, for research. Translation. Let's monetize the magical animal while pretending to care." Classic Odell. Meanwhile, Odell's son, the junior mad scientist, brought Dr. Bhatia into the mix, swiped some unicorn horn powder from him, and snuck off to use it like some back-alley chemist. At this point, dude was one spark away from opening a unicorn meth lab. Ridley had had enough. She walked out of the house and sat in the car. She couldn't take the cruelty anymore. Looking up at the sky, she saw those strange lights again, the same ones from before. That's when it hit her. She couldn't leave her dad behind. She looked again. Something was forming in those lights. Quickly, she ran back inside, pulled out all the unicorn paintings she'd collected, and connected them like a puzzle. And what she discovered was shocking. Unicorns had the power to heal themselves. That meant the unicorns that Odell and Elliot thought were wounded, the ones they were hunting, could actually fight back. Elliot was in danger. She immediately tried to warn him. Meanwhile, Elliot's phone rang. The second he picked it up, he realized something was seriously wrong. A glowing unicorn came charging toward him, and before he could call for backup, it took out one of the guards like a bowling pin. Elliot and Odell ran behind the house in full panic mode, while the unicorn followed, laying waste to guards like it was in a magical version of John Wick. Now Odell, thinking he still had some kind of authority in the situation, stepped forward to control the unicorn. Bad move, the unicorn shish kebabed him with its horn like he was yesterday's steak. Everyone scrambled back into the house and slammed the doors shut. Elliot ordered everyone to stay inside. They tried calling the police, but guess what? The unicorns had cut the power supply. Phones? Dead? Electricity? Gone. Even the fancy electric gates were locked down. These unicorns weren't just cute, they were tactical. Odell's wife, Belinda, then did what all bold, unqualified leaders do. She volunteered someone else for the suicide mission. We need someone to distract the unicorns and open the gate. And who did she choose? Elliot and Dr. Bhatia. Let's be real. Elliot had the survival instincts of a loaf of bread, and Bhatia looked like he'd rather be doing Sudoku than dodging unicorn horns. But orders were orders. Before leaving, they placed the baby unicorn's horn in a safe case. A teary Dr. Bhatia turned to Elliot and said, "We can't keep trusting people like Odell. He only cared about himself. People like that, they'd trade your life for a stock boost." Elliot nodded. Finally, some truth in this madhouse. They brought the baby unicorn outside to reunite it with its parents. The front gate was opened. Belinda Odell's wife made a break for it. Classic. But halfway out, she remembered her son was still inside. Turns out, he was still getting high on unicorn powder like it was magical cocaine. Yep, the man turned a healing substance into a party drug. If stupidity was a superpower, he'd be a full-blown Avenger. When the unicorn parents discovered their baby's horn was missing, they went ballistic and killed Dr. Bhatti in their rage. Meanwhile, Elliot returned home to pick up his daughter, Ridley. Belinda went back in to drag her genius of a son out of his self-induced magical powder trip. Meanwhile, the boy came downstairs after checking out Ridley's printed unicorn story illustrations. He smugly announced that Ridley's idea of releasing the baby unicorn was nonsense. According to him, Ridley herself could have controlled the unicorns. Why? Because in those drawings, it was clearly shown that whenever powerful hunters faced off against the unicorns, a beautiful, unmarried girl would show up and calm them down. Let's pause here. This dude really based his life decisions on fan art. Someone get this guy a library card and a reality check. Now he demanded that Ridley be the one to control the unicorns. To make matters worse, he even snatched the unicorn horn out of Elliot's hands, the very horn Elliot had planned to return to the unicorns outside. Elliot, now fully marinated in regret, started questioning his own greed. Why had he risked his daughter's life? That guilt hit hard, and he finally resigned from the company. Right then, the unicorns stormed the place, howling and breaking down the front door like furry battering rams. Elliot and Ridley scrambled to hide in a locked room, while the rest stayed outside to deal with the chaos. His mother urged the boy to give the horn back to the unicorns, but he refused. His addiction to the unicorn powder had clearly fried his brain. She tried to snatch the container from him, but surprise! There was no horn inside. Turns out, Elliot had already swiped the horn earlier. Ridley was shocked when she saw it in his hand. "I took it to protect you." Elliot said, "Run, get out of here. I'll handle the rest." Ridley didn't want to leave her dad, but he insisted, reminding her of the promise he made to her mom, to always protect her. So Ridley stepped outside where the unicorns were freely roaming. When they approached her, they didn't hurt her. Instead, she sat down on one of their laps and began crying. Meanwhile, Q Shepherd, the human equivalent of a raccoon rummaging through trash for shiny things. Seeing the unicorns calm and relaxed, he once again gave in to his greed. He snuck over and started tying up the legs of the black unicorn Ridley was leaning on, planning to capture it. Just as he was about to make his big mistake, Elliot showed up like a hero in a dad bod cape. He drove the unicorn horn straight into Shepherd's body, killing him and ending his ridiculous obsession with unicorn glitter dust once and for all. But in the scuffle, Shepherd managed to shoot Elliot with an arrow. Fueled by pain, Elliot hurled Shepherd across the room. Both men collapsed. Ridley rushed to her dad, only to realize he was taking his last breaths. He died in front of her, and she broke down in tears, moved by her grief. The unicorns gently touched their horns together and performed some kind of magical ritual. In an astonishing twist, they brought Elliot back to life. Ridley was overwhelmed with joy. She and her dad embraced tightly, grateful for this second chance. Right at that moment, the police arrived, only to completely misread the situation. They saw the bodies, the chaos, and naturally assumed that Ridley and Elliot were responsible. Because when in doubt, blame the people standing in the open instead of the glowing mythical beast prancing around the backyard. Despite their attempts to explain the unbelievable story, no one was buying what sounded like a deleted scene from a fantasy B-movie. But just when things seemed hopeless, the unicorns came galloping in. Clearly not about to let Ridley take the fall. They began signaling and guiding the authorities toward the truth. And just like that, with a little magic, a lot of chaos, and a few well-deserved roasts, the movie comes to an end.